Synchronic is on Netflix as of this review, but I got this one from the library. This is a movie by Benson and Moorhead. If you're unfamiliar, they are a duo of filmmakers that make sort of lower budget sci-fi stories. They did one earlier, but I didn't watch it, but I've seen Spring, which is like a weird sci-fi love story. And I've also seen The Endless, which is not as good, but this is their fourth film, I believe. So this one is about a pair of paramedics. They are very different. Steve is a sort of ladies' man bachelor who, doesn't have much aim in life. Meanwhile, Daniel is a family man who's very critical of everyone. In terms of character development, they're not really well developed, and sometimes the movie sort of writes itself into a certain way to make other stuff happen. I can't get into it because of details, but convenient writing sometimes kind of irked me a little bit. But the movie has a pretty cool concept. Basically, these paramedics are investigating gruesome accidents, and they sort of just chalk it up to people being really dumb with drugs. But there's this new drug that's sort of hitting the town called Synchronic, and it actually affects people very differently depending on how old you are. And our main character's friend Daniel, his daughter disappears after using the drug, and they find out a pretty cool concept. Younger people, when they use the drug, they go back in time. Just straight up. That's the concept, if you can believe it. There are certain rules, of course. So Steve figures it out because he manages to buy some before it gets discontinued. But plot conveniences make it happen so he can't get more of the drug. And the movie has some pretty awful pacing. I do like the concept. The concept, it's very low budget, but really cool. It probably could have been a really interesting short film, but the pacing's all over the place because they've established that this missing girl is lost somewhere in time, but he's wasting his time doing all these experiments, and there's just long conversations. It doesn't feel like it has any urgency. So there's a lot of terrible pacing going on there. Pretty good acting though. I mean, they'd have Anthony Mackie and Jamie Dornan. They're pretty game. But also sometimes the plot just kind of really convenient writing. I just didn't like any of that. For example, whenever Steve goes back in time, he's always near someone, and he's always in danger because it takes you to a random spot in time. But it's so unrealistic that every time he would go back in time, there's just someone there to threaten him. There should be a lot of. That's not the way it works. If you go back in time to just a random spot for 7 minutes, the chances are there's not going to be any civilization around at all. But for the sake of the movie, every single time he goes back in time, he's in danger, and it just feels a little weird. They don't really explain that. And, convenient writing here and there to make it more pressing than it has to be, but then the movie doesn't have any of its own urgency. But overall, it's still an interesting watch. I mean, if you're a hardcore sci-fi fan, and the only reason why I watch this movie at all is because I have, some experience watching their other films. I really liked Spring, but didn't like The Endless. So Synchronic's worth checking out if you're curious and you don't really care. You just want something to watch with a little bit of sci-fi elements. There's also some cool bromance in there. It wasn't awful, but it could have been a lot better. A few more writing changes here and there, better character work. So overall, Synchronic is okay, and I give it a 5 out of 10.